All
I
right. So,
really, I really feel my age, Vicki. I'm, I feel good, but I'm
uh,
just, when I look at myself, I realize I'm an old man.
yeah. Well, your baby's going to be 60 soon. So,
Isn't that incredible? Can't see that.
oh, yeah. Okay. So let me introduce it. Okay. Today is Sunday, September the 17th, 2023. And myself, Vicki Werneke, and interviewing my father, Reverend Dr. Mendle Adams, about some memories that he has from when he was starting a church in Boone County, Kentucky, High Point United Church of Christ. And he's going to share some of his community activities on behalf of the church and the community. So, Dad, what I know you have a letter and press release you want to tell us about, and then give us the backstory of it.
The backstory is that when I was serving to pull together this new congregation in Boone County, Kentucky, we decided right off the bat that we were going to be intentionally inclusive, proudly progressive, and creatively spiritual. And we meant by being intentionally inclusive that we would start right off by being what in the United Church of Christ is called open and affirming, ONA, open and affirming, which meant that we were open for the full inclusion of persons who were gay, lesbian, and so forth within the life and ministry of the church. And we also did the hard work of some biblical and theological studies to find out what it was that we felt was being responsible and appropriate for us as a church to do. So the state legislature, the Senate in Richmond, Kentucky, had a bill before them that was to say that uh, persons that were living in same sex couples could not be protected under the uh, uh, under the domestic violence act. In other words, that they would say that if you were living in a same sex relationship that and somebody beat you up, that you did not have protection of the state uh, uh, against against violence against you. In other words, if you were gay, you were open to violence from anybody that wanted to beat you up. So I had been in contact with the people from the group in Richmond, and we took a few people from the congregation went with me, and we went down there for the hearing before the Senate and demanded a chance to speak to this issue. Now, you might the Southern Baptist Convention had people there that were pushing for this legislation because they saw that as an anti-gay legislation, and that was before the Supreme Court had ruled about gay marriages, but it was having anything to do with gay couples was to be outlawed by the state. So that was the legislation that was before them, and we asked to be able to speak as one of the persons that gave testimony.
And was
Uh,
this, you said you were with a group, was that another organization you were involved with, or just a group of people from your church?
there was a group of persons from my church, but there were a number of folk from around the state that were there, particularly in the Louisville area and the Lexington area. There were several people from those two larger communities, gay people there. Uh, there were some things that happened on the floor. Uh, the head of the um, New Testament studies at the Southern Baptist seminary was there, and he was speaking against speaking in favor of this bill that was anti-gay, and is speaking in favor of it. And so he and I had a little bit of a kerfuffle on the grounds in the front of that, and I
In the
told him that,
chambers, in the
yes,
city
yes.
chamber.
As a matter of fact, I used a little bit of I told Debbie Blood, who was there with me from High Point Church, I said, "Watch this. I'm going to get this guy kicked out." So I went up to him and got right up in his face, and I said, it took the Southern Baptist Convention over 100 years to decide they were wrong about slavery and about blacks. How long is it going to take you to decide that you're wrong about gays? And he
Oh,
blew up and started screaming at me, and the state police came and told him he had to leave, and so they kicked him out of the chamber.
good for you,
Oh,
Dad.
I know, it's just
Was
terrible.
this like was this at a Senate hearing or on
It was
the?
a Senate hearing, yes,
Okay. Oh my
Senate
gosh.
hearing, yeah. And they had this Baptist preacher who was the chair of the Senate committee, of the Judiciary Committee, who was also a Baptist preacher. And so he was presenting this. And so here is the news release
Okay.
that I produced, and we put it out on High Point. Can't read that.
There you
On
go.
a High Point stationary. You can't
That
see
way.
that.
There you go.
There you go.
August
There
19th,
it was.
1997. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Here's what I said.
Okay.
I'm speaking out today in behalf of families in Kentucky who may be too vulnerable to speak out for themselves. Their careers and personal safety may be in jeopardy when they take public stands. The Senate Judiciary Committee is considering bills that would do great harm to a number of families of this Commonwealth. One of those bills would declare open season on every gay and lesbian person by forbidding Kentucky judges from granting domestic violence protection orders in cases of same gender couples. The other bills would step over the line and define a religious sacrament. Some religious groups do not recognize civil marriages or refuse to marry infertile couples, racially mixed couples, persons who have been divorced, or even couples of different religious sects. But no state in the USA forced these narrow religious restrictions on others. The fact is, each denomination prayerfully defines its own sacraments according to its own tradition and understanding. The United States Constitution forbids any state to force any religious group to serve a sacrament which they believe is improper. But by the same token, it forbids anyone from using the state to force a narrow perspective on the public at large. In order to protect the family, it is ludicrous to think that our marriages would have to be renewed like driver's license, which is one of the bills, when we move in or out of a state, depending upon the peculiar local laws. Would this mean that a Middle East dignitary who is visiting Ashland Oil in Kentucky could be arrested for having more than one wife and therefore be considered a criminal under this bill? The legislature has and will continue to have jurisdiction over the dissolution of legal contracts. However, where is the compelling interest of the Commonwealth of Kentucky in the issues before us today? The United Church of Christ General Synod has continued to call for civil rights and fairness for all, including gays and lesbian persons, since 1969. Any couple who wishes to voluntarily covenant to love, honor, and cherish until death us do part should be able to register that commitment with the courts and be considered legally married. Increasingly, more denominations and pastors will be honored to bless those unions as sacramentally valid. It is the religious thing to do, the Reverend Mendle Adams. So that was
Very nice,
on
very nice.
record. That was a long time ago, Vicki. That was before the General Senate had came out for same-sex.
So was that press release done before you went to that Senate meeting or after the hearing?
During.
You did the press release while you issued it while you were at the hearing?
Yes.
Did any reporters
Oh yes, the Kentucky Post and the Cincinnati Post, Cincinnati Enquirer, several picked up on that and covered it. Yeah,
and
yeah.
was the coverage positive or was it
It was fairly positive. I got some blowback, if you can imagine, but uh, my people were proud of the fact we'd done that.
yeah,
They concurred wholeheartedly with that.
yeah.
They applauded it.
So what happened to the legislation?
It finally died in the on the floor. It finally died. Someone decided it was unconstitutional for some reason. But I mean, it was terrible. They had like you'd have like a driver's license that if I move to Indiana from Ohio, I have to get a driver's license for Indiana. Now I can drive in Indiana on my Ohio license, but if I live in Indiana, I have to have an Indiana license.
Right.
And they wanted to make marriage that way, so
Oh,
they could say who was married and who wasn't married. And I noticed this had nothing to do with this, but when this Mrs. Davis down in Kentucky that refused to issue a marriage license to the
yes.
guys that were trying to get married, uh, the courts have said she has to pay them $100,000 now.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Karma's a bitch.
Yes, she is.
So
And
anyhow, I just thought it was interesting that
that
a
is,
stand that we took back in
yeah.
'97.
Well, and
That was a long time ago.
it was wasn't it April of '91 when you officially started the church there?
Yes, yes,
And you set out to intentionally do that, to be
yes.
all inclusive and
Even
everybody.
though it was a very conservative community.
Right, right. And you reached a lot of people that had been driven away from the church
Yes.
because of that. And
Yeah.
how many people have answered the call to be ministers that were part of that church?
At one time, I tried to figure it out, and I'm trying to do my hair. You notice that? And I'm getting backwards here. Uh, uh, I tried to do that, and I counted like some 10 people that had gone into the ministry,
Yeah,
various denominations, but had gone into the ministry uh, based upon what we had done there and had gone on to seminary and gone into various denominational ministry.
that's
Most of the United Church of Christ and Disciples of Christ.
right. That's quite a legacy, Dad. That's a pretty amazing. I remember I was at that first service in April, and I brought the kids too, and it was in the YMCA, right?
Yes,
It
yes, it was.
church in the van, and there was like over 300 people there.
Yes, first service.
It was amazing. It was amazing. Kept having to put out more chairs.
We set up a boiler room with 10 telephones in it. And of course, that was before the cell phone phenomenon caught on.
Yeah.
And so we had 10 land phones put into this storefront that we rented. And then we recruited people to call, and we bought the telephone numbers based upon zip codes. And we just called 23,000 homes and discovered out 23,000 homes, like 10% of them, 2,300, 2,500, something like that, had said that they were interested in learning more about new church that might be opening up. And then we massaged that and through mailings and telephone calls. And out of that, finally, we got 300 people that it came out. And out of that first meeting, we ended up with 160 some uh, members of the congregation right at the get-go.
Yeah,
So
the charter members, right? Yeah,
yes, yeah,
that's phenomenal. I mean, I remember, watching you and Mom, and even though I was in Oklahoma, I was, watching from afar and listening to it. And you guys kind of tackled that like you did political campaigns.
oh yes,
How to reach
exactly.
out to how to reach the constituents and how to get to people, and it was I don't
Your mother's work with the Equal Rights Amendment in the political campaign definitely helped us to put that together, and
yeah
we got lay leadership that stepped up to the plate and said we want to be part of this. That it was amazing. It was just
yeah
amazing.
yeah
And we bought a computer and put everything on computer so we could run it.
yep yep
Volunteer work.
It was just it was a beautiful sight to see. It was, and from my understanding, it's the first time at a New Start church that was kind of the tactic taken, right? That was like totally
Yes.
new for any New Start church.
They called it a zip code drop. We had no members at all, and they just dropped us down in the zip code and said start a church. So I went around to people that I thought I might be able to con into helping me make phone calls and put together a group of. I probably had about 25 people altogether that
Yeah,
agreed to help me, and we kept those 10 phones going for 30 days, almost nonstop.
yeah, yeah.
No, I shouldn't say nonstop. We didn't call them at night and we didn't
Right.
call them in the early morning, but we took the time when they would be available. Now it's almost impossible to do that now because people have caller ID. People have uh, we we don't answer our land phone at all. We've got a
Right.
land phone here that we think we have to have, but we don't answer that at all. We only use
Yeah.
the cell phone.
We have the same thing, Ron has, and maybe he's right, so we have a landline, and I don't even know the number. And since we've moved
Yeah,
to
I
a
don't
new
know my
house,
number.
it's never even rang, and just, but I guess the few times I've had to call 911, it's kind of helpful. But yeah, I don't think we need landlines. We don't, and there's so much more spam calls now than there were in
Yes,
91,
yes,
that
exactly.
it kind of
So
makes it would be
so
difficult to do that now.
it would be impossible to do that now to use that technology here in the States. It might be possible to do that elsewhere in the world, but not here.
Right, right. Well, I know
So
you,
anyhow,
that's quite an amazing story about you going after the Kentucky legislature, and it sounds like it was successful in that you made them
I'm not sure
break some.
that my thing influenced it, but I let them know that there was and they said, United Church of Christ. The Church of Christ said, "Do you speak for the Church of Christ?" I said, "I speak for the United Church of Christ." Yes.
Too ignorant to know that there's a big difference between the Church of
Yeah,
Christ and
I
the United
didn't. I
Christ.
didn't try to educate them along that line.
Yeah.
However,
Well, I'm glad that guy didn't punch you in the face for getting him mad.
boy, I tell you what, he was really mad.
Oh, but you were right though. I mean, yeah, the Southern
There's
Baptist,
no compelling interest that the state should even get involved in that, and
exactly,
there's just no compelling interest. So,
exactly, exactly. Well,
and I think the fact that I spent some time in Indiana's legislature caused me to have enough chutzpah to know that those guys pulled their pants on the same way I pulled mine on, so I wasn't to be intimidated by them.
exactly, exactly. Well, maybe the next recording we can do, we can also or future recordings, we can talk about when you were in the legislature, because I know you've got that whole folder, or at least, or maybe I have it, of newspaper articles and letters you wrote, and that'd be interesting to hear backstories about stuff too.
The legislative council, while I was there, the legislative council had a printout of every vote that I ever took while I was there. I have no idea where that is, and I called maybe 2 years ago to see if they had a copy of it. Well, of course, they don't have a copy of it anymore. But I thought that would be kind of interesting because I remember some of the bills that passed and some that didn't. They interviewed me here a while back for a publication that they put out, and I gasbagged with the guys, and I wasn't satisfied with the interview at all because I didn't give any thought to what it was. But I talked about what I had done. And I only served for 2 years, but
I was gonna say that's pretty amazing. They found you when you only served one term. So
I
yeah.
I learned as much in that 2 years as I did in graduate school.
Well, and I, as I recall you saying to me just recently, or the last couple of years, that your colleagues, some of your colleagues there, tried to get you to go to law school too.
Yes,
And you decided you had been to enough
I
school.
told him I already had a professional degree I wasn't using, so I didn't need another professional degree. That is not smart, Vicki. That was not the smartest thing your father ever did.
You would have been an incredible lawyer.
Well, I still look at things that way.
Yeah.
I really have been intrigued by this latest fiasco and all the legal stuff that's going on. It drives Charlene nuts, because I watch it in all the arguments and so forth, and she'll say, "Why is that important?" I say, "Well, here's why that's important," and
Exactly.
I'm obsessed by it. I really am.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they, who is going to get the gag order and who should get the gag order.
Right. Exactly.
And who, whatever they say, makes me gag. That's the other thing.
Exactly. Well, as we've said, there's not much difference between being a lawyer and being a minister. There's a lot of crossover.
It's a good time to be alive, Vicki.
Amen to that.
It's a good time to be alive with the technology like we have now, that even though we're miles apart,
Yeah.
and we're on a different even time zones, and even though that's true, that we're able to have a conversation.
Yeah.
It's a good time to be alive with all the scientific discoveries that are being made and so forth, to say, oh my goodness, my faith. I told somebody the other day, I said, my faith uh, is challenged by this new information, but it's not weakened.
Yeah.
My faith has grown by that, and it's a case of where the quest is what is so important and what is so exciting and what is so life-giving, as opposed to the certainty. So
Yeah.
it's not a certainty; it's the quest, and I really feel that way. I'm enjoying reading. I'm enjoying where I am and what I'm doing.
Excellent. What more can you ask for, right?
It don't take much to entertain me.
That and a piece of pie, right?
That's right. It's a scoop of ice cream.
That's right.
So,
All right. Well,
thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you can feel free to edit this stuff in and out as you
Okay.
feel necessary
All right.
or important.